Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. I've been to Adelaide a few times, one with this roller derby exposition a few years ago, and I've been a couple times with my band, which I'm now retired from. But I guess what I do online, if none of you have heard of me, which is probably a fair few of you, I run a page called Darth Vegan, and I started that about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and somehow or some way, about 80,000 followers. I've got about 80,000 followers online that people just share my stuff, engage with me, and I just wanted to share the experience of doing that, and obviously my journey to veganism as well, and how that actually began was probably 3 years ago. As I said, I'm quite involved in the music scene, and I had a friend who was meeting me at a gig down at a venue called the Espy in St Kilda, Melbourne, and his meal came out, and I'm looking at this meal, and I'm like, "What the hell is that, man? That does not look tasty at all." And he went on to tell me that basically over the last year or so, he'd gone through a bit of an introspective of sorts. He'd distanced himself from the music scene, the shallowness, the narcissism, and wanted to understand basically what the meaning of his life was and what he'd gone through. And he started to talk to me about something, basically telling me that he was vegan. And it really resonated with me because one of the pillars of my philosophical standpoint, and I believe it's the pillar of society, is people's personal accountability and responsibility. And a lot of people don't understand this, right? I'll give you an example. There are people who claim to be greenies or whatever, so they're happy to point fingers at, the big polluters and all this stuff, yet they can't even see the impact that they're having from their own consumption of animal products. So when he told me this story, I was like, wow, you're the last guy I would have thought would become vegan. And I didn't go vegan overnight. I basically waited. No, I didn't wait, but the story goes that 2 months later, I decided to take my car in for a service, as we all do. And I thought, I've got about 2 hours to spare here. What am I going to do? So I ripped out my tablet, and I had 2 choices to make that day. One was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, a classic, and the other was a family favourite called Earthlings. So I decided I would watch Earthlings in the middle of a crowded mechanic waiting room. And literally half an hour into watching this movie, I was gripped by an existential experience that I can't even explain today. I was sobbing like a little child. This lady came up to me and was like, "Oh, are you okay, mate?" And I'm like, "I've just realised I'm an arsehole." And it was seriously just one of those moments where you'd realise, as much as you kind of already knew, it was just facing the reality of your consumption, and it was just absolutely heartbreaking. And I really did feel like a terrible person at that stage. And I'm sure a lot of you have gone through that same experience in your journey, or if you're still going to that journey, I highly recommend watching Earthlings, as it opens up a whole new world. So I went vegan overnight, and I wanted to know, for 35 years I'd been living a certain way. What is it that I could do now to make a difference? And the story goes that about another 2 months later, so this is 2-month intervals that I'm attracted to, my wife, who we decided that we were going to have a family. So she decided that she would go on a girls' trip to USA in the middle of my introspective and understanding of what the world meant. What could I do? And there I was sitting on my couch thinking, my wife's not here. I can do a Star Wars movie marathon because she's not into that kind of stuff. And I'm watching it. And for those of you who know Star Wars and know the original one, ironically at that stage it was called A New Hope. And then I'm watching this and I'm like, Darth Vader, Darth Vegan, that sounds pretty cool. And I went up and searched all the .coms, checked all the Facebook, checked Facebook to see if it was available. It was. Twitter handle, it was available. Instagram was available. So I did not know exactly what I was doing, but I thought, I can do something. And here I am telling you that social media, from my perspective, is one of the most influential things to have happened in today's modern society. Whether that comes with the negatives that come with it, I truly believe that the positives outweigh the negatives, and without social media, I don't think the growth of the animal rights movement and veganism would be where it is today. I mean, look what's happening today. I mean, 10 years ago, you wouldn't even expect us to have something like this. So it's so amazing to see so many people out here celebrating, enjoying what it is to be vegan and what it is to speak up for the animals. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about why I believe social media is so effective in regards to changing minds and making impact. And if you look at the statistics, so we've got about 7.5 million people in the world. Basically, half of those people use the internet, and nearly all of those use social media. And the most relevant stat for me in my platform of choice, Facebook, is that 76% of these people who use Facebook log onto it every day. So that's like 1.8 billion people. So that's a lot of people that you can interact with and share information that could help change their mind. And I came across this theory. It was called nudge theory. It's a behavioral sciences theory, which basically goes along the lines of continuously and repeatedly bringing information and facts and truth about certain movements or causes that you want to have and change people's minds. Through this action, people will then slowly but surely let their guard down and start to think a lot more openly about what they do and start understanding that notion of personal accountability and responsibility. I can say from a personal example how social media has totally impacted my life. And I don't say this to gloat, but I want to give you it as an example of the great things that can be achieved and the great things that can happen. So as I mentioned earlier, I was in a band, and the somewhat success that we had was well and truly due to the fact of we were able to reach people, talk to people, and share our music with them. It helped us tour Australia a couple of times, record a couple of CDs, and that was something cool. The second thing that it did was I met my wife on, if you're old enough to know, this amazing website called MySpace. I met my wife on there, not in a stalkery, I'm looking for a wife. I met her because I was looking for a music photographer at the time, and she was looking to take photos of bands. And here we are, 10 years later, married with a beautiful 18-month-old vegan baby, which I never thought I would say a long time ago. And then we also launched a business, a retro recycle business, which we launched within 3 months. It was profitable within a year. It was the most successful online retro business in Australia. And finally, it's allowed me to help spread the word of veganism and animal rights across the world. And one thing I can say is, you know, I look up to the likes of James Aspey, Joey Carbstrong, Earthling Ed, and guys like that who are out there in the coalface doing extremely hard work that I personally, it's not built into my DNA, but whatever they're doing, I do my best to help them along and share their information with other people. And hopefully that helps grow their network and their reach as well. The beauty of talking about veganism, and it sounds arrogant when you talk to a non-vegan, is that there is absolutely no there's no response to veganism, as in a reasonable reason why you shouldn't be vegan. Unless you live in some kind of food desert, then you really have no excuses to not really understand. If you believe, if part of your value system is that you want to make less harm on the planet, you don't want to kill something just so you can eat food, then veganism is the answer for you. I mean, it's pretty simple, yet it's such an extremely hard thing to communicate to people because, as we all know, for those of you who, like me, well, I wasn't vegan for 35 years, and as soon as you make that connection, it's like, you know, it's that Matrix analogy, you know, you take the red pill and you're suddenly in this other world of looking at the world from a different perspective and understanding that animals, I should go back to the idea of when I watched Earthlings and why it really resonated with me. It made me realize the difference in how we looked at different animals. So when I was looking at it, I thought of my furry babies at home, our dog Peanut and our cat Butters, and I thought, what if it was them? You know, it just really made me understand that all animals are the same. It doesn't matter what species they are, just like as humans, it doesn't matter what color we are, it doesn't matter what race we are, it doesn't matter what sexual orientation we are. We're all just people, just like animals, like we are animals, and they all deserve the right to be alive. And I just want to do a bit of a survey right now. Put your hands up if you've ever convinced anyone online to go vegan. There's not many of you. So it's an extremely hard thing to do. But it's not about, what my point is, it's not about convincing, it's about influencing. And as I said, with the nudge theory, it's by constantly reaffirming the idea of why we're vegan, why animals deserve to be treated with respect. They deserve to be treated as we do. They're not the same, but they're living creatures. They have emotions, they have connections, they have families, just like us. So there's no reason why we should enslave them, torture them, and kill them just so we can have a burger or a steak. It's just wrong. And for those of you who aren't vegan, I know hearing stuff like that is extremely hard to swallow, but it's a truth that you need to digest yourself and think about. Do your actions really align with your values? And like I said, if you are a person like me who believes personal accountability and responsibility is at the core of your actions, then you should do yourself the favor of really thinking about what it is that you do, what it is that you consume, what it is that you do with your money. You might not be the person who's doing the killing, but if you're paying someone to do the killing, you've got a hand in that. And you should really think about that and think about whether that makes you comfortable or uncomfortable? And if it makes you feel uncomfortable, well, maybe it's time to start thinking about your actions. And maybe it's time to start thinking about going vegan. Now, if you're someone who's really interested in taking up social activism or slacktivism, if some of you want to call it, it might not make you think that you're making a difference by sharing information, sharing the truth, sharing facts, but it does, because I can tell you from personal experiences, and still to this day, it really does get me emotional when I think about the people who will contact me and say, thank you so much for speaking up for the animals. Thank you so much for being that arsehole. Because if no one spoke to me like that, then I wouldn't really think about it. There was this one example. This guy was called, I think his name's Jordan. And for about 6 months, he was like this active troll on my Facebook page where he would literally just do the typical things that most vegans would understand in regards to defense mechanisms when interacting with information that conflicted with the way they thought. I hadn't heard from Jordan for about 3 months. And then one day I was on the page and I noticed Jordan was starting to argue with non-vegans. And there I was like conflicted and understanding, hey, Jordan, what's going on? He's like, well, Darth, I've decided to go vegan. And I said, why is that? And he's like, well, I realized that I was just being an idiot and an absolute dick and just lying to myself. And it took you being, as I typically am, honest and truthful back to him to make him realize that he was acting not in the way that he believed was the right way. And for the one person that might see something that you've shared, or for the one person that has seen something that you have spoken about, every little bit makes a difference. And the way the only analogy I can give you is, for example, if you go and help your friend move house, your friend will come up to you, probably say something like, and you say, thank you. And you'll go back to your friend and say, it's the least I could do. Like you actually help them move the house and they say, that's the least you could do. When I think about when speaking up for the animals, just doing a bit of a share online, just posting to someone's wall, sharing some information, it literally is the least you can do. And I heard from a friend of mine the other day who is a comedian actually, and she's a vegan, and she said, it is the duty of vegans to speak up for the animals because they do not have a voice. And I know it can be uncomfortable to go past that path of ruffling feathers of friends and family, but the question you need to ask yourself is, if you within your own heart believe that this is the right way to live, this is the right way to consume, then if someone has an extreme problem with that they're going to get their back up or unlike you or stop talking to you, well, the reality is they're not really worth having in your life. It sounds harsh, but the older you get, and I'm getting older, I'm nearly 40 now, you just realize that life is short and it's not worth spending with people who don't share the same values as you. To me, it's weird. I mean, you wouldn't hang out with a racist just because they're your mum or your dad, or, I mean, that's the extreme level, but you'd want to convince them other ways. So what I'm saying is, do not fear the pushback you'll get, because I believe in the end it's totally worth it. I know when someone said to me, when you go vegan, you'll lose weight. And I'm not exactly the epitome of a healthy body, but the only thing I did know I lost was friends and family. It's sad, but it's a reality that some people just cannot deal with the fact that there's a walking person around them, that just the mention of the word vegan makes them feel uncomfortable. Now, that's not your problem, that's theirs. So for those of you who want to take that next step, if you're thinking, hey, this is something I want to do, I want to jump online and share information, I want to start a blog, I want to start creating recipes, I want to be someone who shares stuff on nutrition and fitness, you can't have too many of these. I'm just saying, like, the more voices that we have, the better it is for the animals. What I would say, though, is what you really do need is a sense of resilience, because dealing with idiots every day is extremely difficult and it can be quite wearing. There's this great meme that you all might be familiar with, and it's a guy typing at the computer, and it's his wife shouting out to him, "Honey, come to bed." And the guy shouts back, "Honey, hang on, there's somebody wrong on the internet." And that happens to me all the time, and I get caught in this downward stream of, "Rah! I do not like you, you are wrong." And literally 2 hours later can pass, and it's like 1:30 in the morning. It's like, oh, it's probably time to go to bed now. I'll do that. But it may not have gotten anywhere, but at least you fought the good fight. And you fought against those people who are dealing with their own ignorance and dealing with their own cognitive dissonance. Because there is no way that anyone could defend the violence that happens to animals in any rational way. You can't go, "Oh yeah, I don't care that animals get killed, whatever." It makes absolutely no sense. So if that's something that you're interested in, I would say, have a crack. Do it. It's not easy, but it's extremely rewarding. When I think about it, I never thought that I would really make a difference. But for the, maybe 70 or 80 people who have come back to me and said, "Thank you so much," it's just a feeling I can't describe, that you've helped someone make a life-changing decision that's going to make a lot more impact in the future. It's those baby steps that we make as individuals. I know there's lots of people who are much younger than me, but as the older you get, you realize that we've only got one time on this planet. And as the saying goes, YOLO. You only live once. Do all the best that you can be. Try and help others make that connection, because the animals are the voiceless and we are their voice. You are their voice. This festival is their voice. We are making big strides, and I believe we're winning. And I believe it's because of the likes of social media, sharing information, sharing the truth, sharing the facts, whether it be about climate change, whether it be about the health repercussions, or whether it's just at the core of it, at the ethical value. We are winning. The statistics are telling us that people are considering veganism. Whether or not it is that they're reducing their consumption, that's awesome too. But it's also a path to veganism. I'm going to finish up now by saying thank you to the guys at Vegan Adelaide Festival for putting on this amazing event. It's been a pleasure being up here speaking to you guys today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the festival. Thank you.